Thank you to everyone that joined us this morning. I would like to welcome Joshua Stutzman. He is the branch manager for the Cincinnati branch office of the U.S. Small Business Administration. So I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. As mentioned, my name is Joshua Stutzman. I'm the branch manager here in Cincinnati. We are part of the Columbus District Office. The Columbus District Office of the SBA covers 60 counties here in Ohio. And just to kind of let you know what that looks like, there are 88 total counties in Ohio. The rest is covered by the Cleveland District Office. Here in Cincinnati, there are two of us, myself and Nicole Picard, and we cover 16 counties in Southern Ohio. I've been with the SBA for more than 4 years. I am a native to Cincinnati, Ohio, and a University of Cincinnati graduate. However, I spent the last 3.5 years in the Miami District Office of the SBA doing government contracting 8A work with small disadvantaged businesses. And prior to that, I worked at MacDill Air Force Base as a civilian doing government contracting and procurement. And before that, I have total time about 19 years in the United States Army, active duty, Army Reserves, and National Guard. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. I just kind of wanted to let everybody know where we're coming from as an agency and some resources available to you. I mentioned the Columbus District Office, and I've actually emailed over, and we're going to get this into the chat tab for you later, contacts for a couple of my coworkers in the Columbus office as well. At 29 participants, this will be a little bit more manageable for questions, as this is one of the less attended ones that I've done this week. When you have 350 participants all asking questions, I always said, please, 350 people all don't call just me. That's why we're providing all the numbers so everybody can get a chance to get through to someone. Even though we don't work directly in the disaster office, everyone in the field has been redesignated to help. There are some very technical questions, and you'll see that I have posted and will post information for the disaster customer service. We've been doing this for a while, so very technical questions, I can answer most of them, but some of the new stuff, we also provide the disaster team's information so you can reach out to them directly. One of the big things that I wanted to do is to come on, and thank you again for the Troy Chamber for hosting this, is to dispel some misconceptions about some of the different programs that are out there, kind of let everybody know what is out there and some recent changes. I was just actually speaking a minute ago before everybody joined on the call, is we got some new guidance on the PPP program last night. It was a 19-page new interim rule that'll affect some people that possibly have 1099 employees, as well as those that may themselves have commission-based jobs and they're looking to apply for assistance. So I'll talk and highlight some of that new updated information, make sure we provide all the links and answer as many questions as possible. We actually have some questions that were sent in before we started today. I'll be able to answer. I did get a chance to look over some of them. I was on another webinar, and then we had a staff call this morning. So the ones that I didn't get to, we'll talk about as a group. And from this point on, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to go into a brief PowerPoint overview of some of the programs, and then making sure everyone kind of understands not only what's available, but the differences. We've got a lot of calls recently of some people were kind of confusing the program. So I really want to put out that information so everybody is familiar where the line is on each one. All right, at this time, everybody should now hopefully see my screen and my PowerPoint. Can I get a, Will, I see you on, William, I see you on, can I get an up and down? You see it? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Sorry, you were the first face I saw as I looked down. As we want to go in, I want to share a message from our district director, Mr. Everett Waddell, here in the Columbus District Office. One of the big things that he understands is there's a lot of businesses coming to you, you as business owners, you have family, friends, everybody is looking for information. As I kind of pointed out, there is a lot of information coming that's changing daily. We're staying very fluid with this, and if there are specific questions that are very technical and I don't have the answer to, I can either get you to someone in my office that may have that specialty knowledge, or we will always get you to the disaster team itself. And that's why we want to provide those contacts during this presentation. second. All right, perfect. So let's talk about the EIDL, and that is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, also referred to as the EIDL loan. The federal government has set this up for working capital. This loan is used to pay fixed debts, also things such as payroll, accounts payable, other bills that could have been paid during the disaster if it did not occur. Now remember, you have to show as a business owner that COVID-19 has directly affected your business to be eligible. Also, you have to be in a declared disaster area. One thing that I've been putting out on the webinars is we have people join from all over. I think this one is centralized to Ohio, but I always tell people if you're in Kentucky or Indiana or one of the neighboring states, always go to that district office and check what information they have for you as far as state assistance as well. I've also included some of the information that'll give you information on state programs, not just the federal programs. And another thing that makes you eligible is your county has to actually, where your business is located, has to be declared a disaster area for you to be eligible for this loan. I can report that Ohio has been declared and all the counties have been added, so that should not be a problem for anyone. The website that I'll share later for the application process, there's actually a circle on the left-hand side that allows you to go in and check each county. So you can, even before you start the application, you can go in and see your county's name listed on the site, which also then tells you that it's 100% there and you'll have no issues on that end. The eligible entities have until December 18th of 2020. If you or a business you know of hasn't already applied and think they'll need it, please don't wait until that long. Obviously, this has been a high demand program and funds will only last so long. So the sooner you apply, if you don't know if you'll need it, apply. You can always pay it back early with no prepayment penalty. One of the big things we stress is you don't get hit with prepayment, and this can be spanned over a 30-year term, and the interest rates we'll talk about are actually very favorable. It's 3.75% for small businesses, and that's fixed, and then it's 2.75 for nonprofits, the ones that are eligible to apply. And then when you're doing under the new program, the streamlined application program, I will let you know there's a radio button that you can click for the EIDL Advance. That's up to $10,000 right now. How that has changed since some of you heard when it first came out, it was up to $10,000. Now they have redesignated it currently that it'll be up to $1,000 per FTE is how you'll figure that out. So if I'm applying for the EIDL Advance, that $10,000 grant portion of the EIDL loan, and I had 8 employees, it would be $8,000. Now for sole proprietors, it's $1,000. Now this could change again, but that is the current information we have as of this morning. We've had people yesterday that reached out to us that already got money put in their bank, part of the EIDL. So how that was designed, it was immediate or faster access to capital for those immediate business obligations. So those that applied in the early process of the EIDL loan and then opted in for EIDL Advance, they have gotten that as of this week. Initially, they were saying 3 to 5 business days, but as mentioned before, because of the high demand for all the assistance programs right now, there was some delays as they were working out payments and amounts for everyone. So as of this week, we've heard numerous stories of people getting direct deposits into their account that they had set up when they applied. Actually, 3 of which told me they got the money before they got the email, which is not always a bad thing. So what happened is their money showed up in their account yesterday, and then later in the afternoon, they got an email explaining the breakdown and the funds. And hey, this isn't the final, this is just a part of your EIDL Advance. And so let's talk about the EIDL criteria. Credit history, applicants have to have a credit history acceptable to SBA. Unfortunately, there's not a magic number. I know some people have heard that a number was given X in the beginning. That has changed. They've been working with people. That's why they're not issuing a number. Disaster is working to get the most amount of affected businesses through the process. They've already gone back and worked with some of the initial denials. In the first week, they were at a 90% approval rate. They have worked on getting, and that's what we saw locally in the Ohio area in the first week. However, I will tell you, they've gone back to try to get more people approved. So there's not a magic number for the credit score that we can give out because that is decided upon by the disaster team. You will have a processor work with you. The good news is after you fill out the application, someone contacts you to figure out your business time horizon. So a business owner will be able to work with a processor directly, talk about the documents they submitted, figure out the time horizon, which will in turn help figure out the amount of the loan that is required. And then based on the business's ability for repayment, the term will be figured out for the length of time. Eligibility, the applicant's business must be physically located in declared disaster area. As mentioned before, Ohio, we're on there, so that's not going to be a problem for anyone on this call, or should not be. So collateral requirements. So at this time, collateral is not something that is going to be a reason for SBA declining them. However, if collateral on any loan $25,000, above $25,000, they will look for any collateral available. If you do not have property or a home for collateral, they will look for, say, for example, any heavy machinery that you may have associated with your business as collateral. So it's a personal guarantee up to $25,000. So if it's less than $25,000, it's a personal guarantee loan, no collateral required. So the funds come directly from the Treasury. How this is different is, many of you know, in the past SBA lending, only disaster loans came from the SBA, and then other funds were secured through lending partners in the community. Well, the EIDL funds come directly from the Treasury in the partnership with the SBA, working to help small businesses. So at this slide, that's why I want to kind of highlight the US Treasury also has a great page for FAQs. So some of the sites that we're going to be sharing with you today are some of our update sites. Please opt in. I wasn't kidding, where new information can be put out daily. So please opt in for our email updates. That's the fastest way to get information, as well as the US Treasury site has that same option where you can opt in for their updates, but also please view their frequently asked questions page. There's a lot of questions on there that I find very useful, and I would hope that a lot of the participants here on the call would as well. Now, applicants, now we're still talking about EIDL. You go through the federal funds. I'm going to give you this link here, how to apply. You do not go to the bank. This is on the economic injury disaster loan. So go to disasterloan.sba.gov. There's no fees to apply, and there's no obligation to take the loan. If for some reason they go to issue the loan and something has changed in your business model, some new programs come out that you want before you sign your promissory note, that is totally fine. I know that was one of the questions that someone had before we got on here is, hey, what if something better comes out later that fits my needs? Well, guess what? It's going to be a process. You still have to apply. So if, say, in the next 2 weeks, something comes out before you get your whole loan amount, you do not have to take that. And in fact, if you did take that, there's no prepayment penalty. So you can always prepay down the loan and no cost to you as far as if you denied to take the loan. You filled out some paperwork, but the thing of it is try to get in as soon as possible if you think that you will need access to any funds or assistance. So applicants that have disaster loans, for those that were in Dayton affected by tornadoes or any other disaster previously, can apply. However, their loans cannot be consolidated. If more funds are needed, they obviously need, the business owner has to submit supporting documentation for any increase that they'll need. And then if the loan is denied, this is one of the things I was telling you about credit score earlier. You, as a business owner, be given up to 6 months to provide new information. You'll be able to work with someone in the disaster team and submit a written request for reconsideration. As mentioned, they were taking some of the early denied applicants in the very beginning, and some of them have already been worked with to get approvals. A lot of things were streamlined. You have to remember, no program has been rolled out so big in such a short amount of time. The number of loans is just astronomical. I caught part of the staff call right before I jumped on this one, and they kind of put in perspective that we've done more in 2 weeks than several years total in all SBA lending. And this program was put together in a matter of 5 days. So as changes come down, that's why it's great to really make sure that you're signing up for those alerts and updates, because there will be changes on a program that was made in 5 days to accommodate such a large volume of business owners. So ineligible entities, let's talk about this for a second. Agricultural enterprises, if the primary activity of the business, including its affiliates, is defined in Section 18B1 of the Small Business Act, neither the business or its affiliates are eligible for EIDL assistance. Now, religious organizations and charitable organizations, some of this is changing. We are not allowed to speculate on any of the changes coming down. That's why it's important until it is actually in concrete. We can't mention it, but go on those updates and they will give you the things that are changing. There are going to be some changes of obviously the PPP program, and we'll talk about that, who can apply. Some of these same organizations that are not eligible for EIDL are eligible for a PPP program. So gambling concerns, casinos, racetracks, real estate developers still considered ineligible entities. And then private nonprofits. Again, some of this is changing who's available for PPP versus EIDL. What is still not eligible, unfortunately, I know we're on with the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce, as of this morning, are still not eligible for the program. And how to apply. As mentioned, I was going to give the website. Here is the exact website to go to, www.sba.gov/disaster. Also, one of the things I want to highlight for those super technical questions, I mean, we've gotten really, really good at answering a lot of those, but the disaster customer service team, one of the things that we've asked a lot is, hey, what's the status on my loan? We do, unfortunately, in the field, don't have the ability to check that. And depending on what phase of the application process you came in on, the customer service can't always check that, but under the customer service questions, they can give you a lot more information because they do have access to a lot of those systems on the disaster side. So one of the things I want to mention is obtaining assistance. I mentioned this early in the call, and that's why I'm going to provide tons of emails and phone numbers, but these aren't to like random people. These are to my coworkers. My information will be posted, as well as the Columbus District Office, some of the personnel there that are tasked with fielding some of the calls and questions, as well as the SBDC's SCORE chapters. I'll have a link, as you see at the bottom, where it says to find the nearest office. Well, that's directly on our SBA website if you click on the local assistance tab. However, I have the hyperlink that'll take you right to that tool where you punch in your zip code and you can find the nearest person to you for help, whether it's someone in the SCORE chapter, the small business development centers, the women business centers. The chambers have been great partners in the community, putting and hosting webinars, as well as getting a lot of the information we're sending out to them, and they're getting from these updates to members. So going on about the 10,000 advance, I kind of hit on that already. Just to kind of recap, that is a separate part. If you're under the new system, there is a radio button during your application to be considered for the EIDL advance. What that is up to a $10,000, as you will, grant amount that will be forgiven for use for payroll. That's why right now some of the changes, as I mentioned, sole proprietors, we're seeing $1,000 automatically deposited yesterday. You're getting $1,000 per FTE. So if I have 8 employees, I would have gotten $8,000 under how the program is redesigned currently for that advance portion. Now remember, that's not your final amount. If you applied to the EIDL loan, you'll still have someone contact you, and everything that you would answer question-wise for your EIDL loan is still moving forward in the process. This is just for that initial advance. So now I'd like to switch gears and kind of roll into the Paycheck Protection Program. This is the PPP. One of the big lines of demarcation here between this and the EIDL is this is through lending partners. So before we talked about federal funds coming from the US Treasury and then working with the SBA. However, here the SBA has been working with lending partners. Your previously approved 7A and 504 lenders as well. Now we have a lot of bankers that have come on if they're federally insured and they have applied to be a part of this program. We always tell people, hey, look, we have a list of approved lenders in Ohio broken down by county. But that was people that were active in the 7A and 504 program. We have a lot of lenders that have come on board to help, or were previous SBA lenders and maybe just haven't done a loan in a couple years, that have entered in doing this PPP. So you always want to check with your local bank first. Another reason why is ask them if they're participating, because if you already have a relationship with your bank and they have access to a lot of your information, it can make the process a lot easier. Also, some banks out there, not all of them, but some banks are only taking applications on the PPP through current members. There's between 10 to 15 banks right now that we're aware of that are taking new members. That list does change daily based on their volume of applications. So if your local bank is not participating, please reach out to one of us. One of the numbers that I'll list, myself, Dave Townsend, Jerome Jones, Talia, or I believe Jill's name is also listed in the Columbus District Office. We can get you the list of names of the bankers that week that are doing it in case your bank is not participating in this program. So to go into what the overview of the PPP is this is a loan designed to provide direct incentive for small business to keep their workers on payroll. I know we're gonna, at the end of this, come across some questions, and I think I already saw one pop up earlier about people that are under unemployment. There are some parameters as a business owner, what you have to follow to get your staffing levels back, to get the full forgiveness on this. But this is to bring employees back for 8 weeks and after the promissory note is signed. Someone says, hey, how do I judge the 8-week time frame? Well, it's 8 weeks after the loan is issued, and the money has to be used for payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, or utilities. Now, you have until June 30th to get into this program, but that's also the same date you have to bring your staffing levels back. And I'm actually going to read this from a quick fact sheet for you. Rehiring, you have until June 30th, and this is directly from the fact sheet on the PPP, to restore your full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th. Now, one of the big things to note about that is they're trying to provide this to bring staffing back. And we understand for some businesses, due to their current situation, it doesn't 100% make sense for them. And some employees, they're making more on unemployment, so it doesn't make sense for them. But it's staffing levels. It didn't say your exact staff. And then it also didn't say you had to bring them all back. That's the amount that you can get forgiveness on to bring those staffing levels back to what it was before that time. So as we move on to the next slide, who can apply? So the small business standard they're using is businesses with less than 500 employees. There are some outliers here that go under the small business size standard table, which can be found on SBA.gov. In our search tab, you can just type in small business size standard table, and that is derived from the North American Industry Code, or the NAICS code the business is designated under for their industry. There are some businesses in hospitality and also, like say, for example, restaurants that apply a little different, only because if they have certain number of employees, less than 500 at a location, it may be eligible, but the total small business, the bigger entity, may not. So how to apply? You go to the approved SBA lender, whether it be a 7A, a 504 lender, or one of the other businesses that have applied. There have been applicants that have applied, like I said, that used to do SBA lending or just wanted to come on board because they had the availability to help in this program. So there was an application recently where some other lending institutions are participating in this program. So again, always check with your bank first. And then see, it even says that on the slide. So check with your local lender. And then lenders begin processing on April 3rd. Truth of the matter on this, April 3rd, the program was rolled out. Some businesses or some banks did not start accepting applications until later in that afternoon. And then some banks were waiting on the final interim rule that weekend. So they started accepting applications on that Monday morning. Now, April 10th is the date that they started accepting applications for sole proprietors and 1099 employees. That is a different date. So they were able to apply on April 10th. April 3rd was for small businesses such as your LLCs. So as we move on to some of the details on forgiveness, I know this is going to be a big one. And as you'll note that I have some numbers here, one of the big figures to really hone in on it at the bottom is it's a 1% interest rate on that. And that has changed from when it first came out, but it's a 2-year term and an interest rate of 1%. It's fully forgiven if the funds are used for payroll costs, interest on mortgage, rent, and utilities. And we know this has had a high subscription rate. So at least 75% of the forgiven amount must be used for payroll. That's very important. Now, how you ask for forgiveness is not through the SBA. You actually go through your direct lender and you need to talk to them about the forgiveness, because they will need certain payroll documentation from you to make sure that you are getting the full forgiveness amount available to your business. So work with your banker. It has to be done through the banker. Can't stress that enough. And loan payments will also be deferred for 6 months on this program. No collateral or personal guarantees are required, and neither the government or the lenders are going to charge any small business any fees. So forgiveness is based on maintaining and quickly rehiring. As you heard me read off the fact sheet earlier, it's rehiring your salary levels by June 30th of any changes you made between February 15th and April 26th of 2020. One thing I want to say is level payroll, your forgiveness will also be reduced if you decrease salaries and wages by more than 25% for any employee that made less than $100,000 annualized in 2019. One thing to point out there as well. Want to kind of switch gears into debt relief program. Kind of put this placeholder here to make sure that we are transitioning. A lot of confusion has been made. Someone said, oh, well, I applied to the EIDL program. I can't apply to the PPP. It's actually incorrect. You can apply to several programs. Say, for example, you can even apply to the EIDL Advance and still be eligible for the PPP. However, make sure you're not commingling funds, because you have to have a separate record to show what you're paying to be able to get the full forgiveness. As you probably remember, I even on this slide talked about that you can use it for rent, utilities, but it was pointed out due to high subscription, 75% of the forgiven amount must be used for payroll. So you really have to either sit down and make sure you're diligent in your numbers, or talk to your banking institution as you see, so you're really looking at that 75% and you're cognizant of how you're paying that off. That way you are eligible for the full forgiveness amount. So as we roll into debt relief program, I want to talk about debt relief. Obviously, if you have anything that is non-SBA debt, if it's not federal debt or through a banking industry that has an SBA guarantee on the loan, you still want to talk to anyone, as a lot of places are giving deferments out there. But specifically, SBA is working with 7A and 504 lenders, and they are giving deferments on those loans as well. To include, the SBA will also pay the principal and interest of any new 7A loan prior to September 27th. And we are going to pay principal and interest for loans of a period of 6 months on the 7A loans as well. There were a lot of businesses that were in the process, had just gotten loans on the 7A side or 504 side right before the impact of COVID-19 here in the United States. And so that's especially important to those businesses as they're working with relief. So please work with your lending institution that guaranteed the loan or gave you the loan, so you can work with them as well, especially if it has that SBA guarantee. Some of the important contacts. So I have this page here. Take a screenshot of it or take a picture with your phone. We're also going to provide a slew of other links, contact numbers, as well as people here local to Ohio that you can get a hold of, and all the links to sign up for updates, as well as Twitter feeds, and anybody that's very active on social media. They have a lot of social media threads that you can sign up for as well. And of course, one of the biggest things, I was until very recently still working from the office. As you see, I'm at home now. So we want everyone to stay safe. Let us know how the SBA can help. Again, as new things come out, we're going to be sharing, and hopefully we'll be able to circle back with the Troy Chamber as things develop, and maybe do a follow on as we get new information to share, or any new trainings that we can provide just instead of informational briefs. Pull this back up.
That was great. Thank you. We will use the chat if anyone has questions, or you can raise your hand. Give everybody.
Did it stop sharing my screen?
Nope, we can still see your PowerPoint.
All right. Perfect.
There we go. There we go. So if I can see your video, you can either use the raise the hand feature, or you can kind of just wave at me and I'll know that you have a question. You have a specific question? All right, I'm going to start with William. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Joshua, for the information. I appreciate that. Number one. My question is the eligibility or the ineligible.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned agriculture. Is that referring to farmers and farm? What?
Farmers,
Why?
yes. Agricultural cooperatives, no. They are agricultural co-ops are eligible, but farmers are not at this time.
So why is that? I don't understand that.
I don't know the answer to that question,
Okay.
sir. That's something that we would have to pose to disaster. Unfortunately, this is how it was written and then handed down to us, but I'm not sure why it was written that way or if they're proposing any changes on that one, but that's the information we have as of last night. Gotcha.
Just having been born and raised on a dairy farm and a crop farm, I found that kind of, I would think that a farmer would be essential to our our living and well-being, providing food and you know.
Well, I know the Department of Agriculture, we have heard some bit from them. I know they have some things going on. I don't work for them, so I can't speak to their specific programs, but I know because they've reached out, and in the past there were different programs that could be used simultaneously with the Department of Agriculture and the SBA.
Okay.
This is not one of those going on right now, but I know they have a couple programs they're doing. Any farmer that you talk to, I would encourage them to reach out. And if you don't have a good contact number for the Department of Agriculture, please let me know. I can get you lined up. So.
Okay, because I do have some clients that are farmers.
Yeah, we could definitely get them lined up. Unfortunately, I don't know the reasoning why it was written like that or if it is changing, but I do have a contact over there that I can link anyone up with should they need more information on that.
Okay, I may be getting back to you on that. Okay.
Okay, yeah, no problem. My email can be provided to you, and just shoot me an email.
Roger that. Thank you very much. And go Navy.
Yeah, Army all the way.
No, Navy.
Didn't we beat you guys last time?
You know, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah, we found a couple, right?
All right. I am going to unmute Terry. She had a question.
Okay.
Hi, my question is, if we don't currently have an SBA loan, we own a salon and we have booth renters. Okay, so they just rent the space. They're not salaried employees. And we currently don't have an SBA loan. Do we qualify for this, the disaster, the EIDL, or whatever you were calling it?
You can. The difference on what you won't qualify for is the PPP, because I take it the booth renters are 1099 employees?
Yes.
So the renters, let them know that they can actually go to their bank and apply as 1099 employees under the PPP program. And they were also able to apply as of the 10th of April. I had to look down at the date. So just last Friday it was, I guess, right? Yes, last Friday. They were eligible to apply. Now it's going to be a little different of how yours would be structured. You still want to apply and you want to show, I would take it you have a lease for the business?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what you'll show as your business obligations or costs for that loan. What you're not going to be able to do is say, for example, you had 10 booth renters and you won't be able to claim those as 10 employees to get the full 10,000 advance on the EIDL program. However, your employees can then go and apply to the PPP program as 1099 individuals.
Okay.
So you will be able to apply to some assistance as the business owner, and some of the people that were renting from you as 1099 employees can apply to the PPP program.
Okay, so I applied. It was first week in April, I believe, or whenever it came out, mid-April. No, it was first week in April. But how long does it normally take to even get a response back? I haven't heard one thing from anyone.
Unfortunately, a couple weeks. One of the things I want to make sure, did you get a confirmation page saying your application has been received, and then it'll say a little loan application number?
Mm-hmm.
Did you got that?
No.
Okay. So that disaster number that I gave you, I would recommend either calling them or shooting them an email. At no time did you get an application number when you were filling out the screen. It would have been at the top. It would have said, did you take any screenshots when you were
I
filling
did
out
take
that?
screenshots.
Look back at that. There should be an area that says application number. That's very important. Jot that down and then reference that when you call them. Depending on what phase of the system when you applied, they may be able to give a status, depending on if you were under the streamlined system or the original system. If you were under the old system, the one that ended up crashing later, they'll be able to look you up.
Okay.
But tell them you just, even if you can't get a status, you just need confirmation that your information was received.
Okay, and I did contact my Right Pat, and they said there was nothing there available for us.
Is
At
that
the time.
the bank you work with?
Uh-huh,
The credit union? Okay.
yes.
When was that?
It was early on.
Now, do you pay
in
yourself?
March.
So do you pay yourself?
No,
Are you structured as a draw or a sole proprietor? How are you structured?
LLC.
Okay. So you would have been able to apply. Now, you wouldn't get the whole payroll protection or paycheck protection program. However, as a sole proprietor, because even if the way you're structured, talk to them now because that application didn't open up until the 10th. Ask them if
Oh,
they're
okay.
participating. You won't be able to claim your employees, but you can claim yourself depending on how you're structured. And that's why if your bank isn't or credit union isn't participating, reach out to one of the other ones and we can get a list of the participating lenders in the area, or if you have a second institution you work with, see if they're participating.
And that's for which loan?
That's for the PPP. You won't be able to claim your employees on that one. Remember,
I don't have employees. I don't have
Yeah.
any employees. Yeah.
your 1099s, I'm sorry, your 1099s can apply themselves. And then,
But we can't.
correct.
Okay.
You can apply depending on how you're structured. That's why you're going to need to talk to your bank. When you say an LLC, how do you pay yourself? Are you on a draw?
We don't pay ourselves yet. We're new. We just opened in October.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, that helps because some LLCs, if they're on a draw, or some that actually pay themselves another way,
Right.
they would be eligible. Okay. I'm
Right.
tracking now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We have a call in the chat. On the PPP loans, is the 1% interest forgivable as well?
The loan amount is the interest as of right now. We have not gotten any information that the interest is. However, remember the forgivable amount is what's used on the payroll portion, and that's what you work with your lending institution on.
Thank you. Another question from the chat from Colleen. To clarify the 8-week forgiveness, if funds are received on, say, April 30th, then we could hire all previous headcount as late as June 30th in order to get the loan forgiveness. And can you elaborate on the LLC partnership owner draw eligibility?
Okay, so with the 8 weeks, yes, the 8 weeks starts from the time you get the loan. And what that'll do is you have until the June 30th date. So I don't have a calendar in front of me, but as long as that spans the 8 weeks, you have that 8 weeks time. And that is how they figure the forgivable amount over the 8 weeks.
Thank you.
And then with the other question, they wanted to know about the draw you said about the LLC.
Yes,
Okay, and specifically to the PPP, correct?
I believe so.
So for that one, unfortunately,
Yes.
work with your banker, because as things are coming out, like I said, they just released 19 more. I think I said it on this webinar, but they released 19 more pages last night that specifically goes over sole proprietors and how businesses are structured for the PPP. Since I've been on calls all morning, I've not read all 19 pages yet, but the bankers got this last night. So work with your local banker. And this was the new interim rule on the PPP just released last night.
Very good. A question, as a sub S corporation, will wages paid to me personally still qualify for the PPP purposes, or is it only for non-owners?
So unfortunately, I've asked that question before we got on the call up to disaster. I've not gotten word back. I don't have my email up right now, but I recommend either reach out to your lender or send me a message directly, and we'll see if we can get that answered for you.
Okay, thank you. we had someone that was asking if we could get that current list of banks working with people that are not members. This person in particular has called 9 banks and none of which are taking non-members.
Sure. In that, can I ask you, in that email list I gave you earlier that we were going to post in the chat, does that have Jill's number on it? At the very, very bottom, it would be on there.
It's on the email, I know. I don't know if it went into the chat, so I'll make
Okay.
sure that it's included in the email that we follow up with.
To that person, please reach out to Jill Nagy Reynolds, who should be on that contact information we're sharing. She's keeping a current listing. And like I said, she had somewhere between 10 and 15 as of the beginning of the week. So please reach out to Jill. She's in our Columbus office, and just ask her if she can provide you the name and number of the banks that are taking new clients for the PPP.
Very good. In the case of a commission person where there was no commission earned because of the COVID shutdown, how do they calculate a wage for the PPP?
So
Go ahead.
Schedule C, line 31, net profit for last year. They have to go on that document, the 1040 Schedule C. And unfortunately, it is in fact the line 31 net profit is where they're going to get that average or that salary for that person. And they compare that to last year's information for commission. I did see that question and I did get an answer back on that one before we started this one. And then the rest of the people that are figuring out salaries, it's the total salary divided by 12 times 2.5, which gives you that amount. But commission's a little different, unfortunately, and it comes from the 1040 Schedule C form.
Thank you. I think that covered the questions I have. Does anyone have any additional questions? I can unmute you if you do, or you can add them to the chat as we're waiting.
The great news is all these resources we're posting, and if there's other stuff that you have, either reach out to me directly or one of my counterparts in the Columbus district office. We want to make ourselves accessible, and some of it is going to be specific to your bank and some of it to the disaster team, but the ones that we are getting frequently or find out in advance, we can try to get answers on as well.
Just as a quick follow-up on that previous question, he said there's no 1040 on a corporate return for a sub S.
So the 10, and that might be in the new one, on the new 19 pages. I'll have to look at that. And if that person reaches out to me, I can share the 19 pages. I've honestly not had a chance this morning to read it all, but I did know that for commissions, they were talking about the Schedule C, line 31.
All right, I'll make sure that Jerry has your information and can get in touch with you. And then Jerry, I see you're unmuted. So did you have any other questions you wanted to ask before we let Joshua go?
No, I was just going to follow up on that one a little bit. You know, in the case of a commissioned employee, not a self-employed commissioned person, but a commissioned employee, and that's why there would be no Schedule C on that.
Okay. Yeah, no, thanks for the clarification. This is when I forward that initial question I got, I forwarded it up to someone in the SBA working with the disaster, not on the disaster team. And that's what they wrote back, but I didn't have that exact clarification to provide them when I asked the initial question.
Okay.
We'll try to get you some more information. Thanks, Jerry, for the question. Anyone else have additional questions before we let Joshua go? As I said, the information that he shared, the links are in the chat, but I will also email that with a copy of this presentation to you after we get done today. So you'll have all the information, including all that contact information that he was talking about.
And I did see another question we didn't get to go on about the 8 weeks before we close out is someone asked what happens beyond the 8 weeks. We don't know yet. It has not been extended. Unfortunately, with things right now as they are, I will tell everyone they are working stuff. I know in my last webinar, a gentleman said he's not even watching the news right now. I don't blame him, but on the news, they are reporting things going on in Capitol Hill. We don't know what those final products will look like through approval, but that could affect some of the programs as they sit right now. We don't have any guidance and can't speculate on that, but right now, 8 weeks is the duration that they're working with for the PPP.
Thank you. And then one last one, someone asked, is the updated interim rule on the SBA website?
It's part of the release. It should be posted to the website now. If not, we also have the Twitter. I'm not sure if you call it a handle or a feed. We also have those links that they put out. As you see, I'm not a social media guy. But we have a public affairs specialist up in our Columbus district that's sending all that stuff out, as well as those updates. And that's part of the many links that we provided that'll be in that information.
Very good.
Yeah,
Well,
and I'm looking back, it did come up. I see resource partners. I see all the different
Okay.
loan guidance, the newsletter, the social media handles, all that information's there, as well as some of our direct people's email addresses and phone numbers as well here at the SBA.
Very good. Well, it
Thank
doesn't
you
look
again
like we,
for hosting this. I really appreciate the time. To many of you, I wish you please stay safe, stay well, and reach out to the SBA as we can help. We'll make sure, I don't see everyone's phone number in there, Dave and Talia and Jerome and Jill, but we'll make sure we get that over to everyone.
yeah, I'll follow up with an email, and we really appreciate your time today, Joshua. Thank you.
Hopefully we can follow up with some updates shortly as we have them. I would love to reach out and do a follow-up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, you too. Thank you to everyone for joining us today.